Hello, friend. Chuck Bennett here. Common sense and common decency tell me that we have troubles ahead. America is at a dangerous crossroad, but I have faith in our better angels. Welcome to Letters from an American Optimist. Today's letter is dated November 16th, 2024. It's addressed to people who are alarmed, maybe even scared about what is happening to our country. And I'm right there with you. I was in a dark hole after the election, but it was writing this letter that made me feel better. It's about placing this moment into the broad sweep of American history. As it turns out, we are actually in a familiar place. Dear alarmed Americans, we are seeing our country change in front of our eyes. Trump's reelection has left many of us overcome with anxiety and even fear. We do not know how bad things will get, but we clearly see the likelihood of disaster, and we are feeling powerless to stop it. At the same time, we have neighbors who are happily unaware that the world is shifting beneath their feet. Other neighbors have tricked themselves into believing that this is business as usual. Nothing to see here. Many of us have neighbors who are positively gleeful. In fact, the more upset we are, the better they like it. But this is not the first crisis in our history. Let us remember that and take the time to place this moment into the context of the rest of American history. Kevin Roberts, the leader of Heritage Foundation and Project 25, said, "We are in the midst of a second American Revolution." He said, out loud, for anyone who has ears to hear, that this revolution will be bloodless, quote, if the left allows it to be. Few of us have heard of this man, but he and the people he leads, those who actually wrote Project 2025, are a real threat. They will soon be scattered across the new administration, behind the scenes in places where the real work is done. From the White House basement to positions in key departments, their goal is to tear down the institutions of our government. Kevin Roberts is wrong about many things, but let's start with this. This is no second American Revolution. It is a counter-revolution designed to turn back the clock to a time when the ruling class did not think people could govern themselves. Like every group that craves autocracy, they do not trust democracy. They want to go back to a time when wealthy white males were in control. Project 2025 seeks nothing less than to overthrow the American Revolution. The American Revolution itself overthrew the existing order of the colonies. Instead of establishing, like every other nation in the world, yet another autocracy, we set out to prove that people can govern themselves. But that was not our only revolutionary act. We proclaimed the ideal that all people are created equal and that all people have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Philosophers may have bandied about variations of those words, but we are the ones who put them into our founding document. The American Revolution did not end with the Treaty of Paris. Only time could prove whether or not a democracy was sustainable. Don't forget, no other nation has ever done what we have done for as long as we have done it. We are approaching our 250th birthday, but measured in the life of nations, we are still young. We have not yet proven that democracies can long survive. And our founders knew that we were far, very far from the ideals of the Declaration of Independence. They left it to future generations to work out exactly what it means to say, all men are created equal, and all have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, over time, the American Revolution has continued. Part of it is the story of people giving up power. George Washington, who did not run for a third term, who did not want power, yielded his to John Adams. John Adams, who ran for re-election and lost, who did want the power, yielded his to Thomas Jefferson. This astounded the world. but we had further to go. In most of America, only Protestant, white, male landowners could vote. In time, these men gave up this exclusive power to other white men. It took a war, but white Southerners finally lost their power to own slaves. Another 50 years after that, women finally won what should have been theirs from the beginning, the right to vote. Along the way, those in power tried to restrict the vote with poll taxes, literacy tests, or just plain old intimidation, almost always to reserve the power of the vote to whites. It was only in my lifetime that Black Americans won the practical right to participate in our democracy. But the American Revolution is about more than governing. It's about equality and our freedom to participate in society as equals, to give actual substance and meaning to the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Non-Protestants of faith and non-faith have had to fight to be visible, active parts of our society. Women, Black people, minorities of all types, people with disabilities, gays and lesbians, each, in their turn, have had to struggle for what was rightfully theirs, and their path was blocked every step of the way by people wanting to preserve their own power. As we look back at this ongoing American Revolution, it seems like the unrolling of a scroll. The success of America and its ideals has acquired an air of inevitability. It feels preordained. And we forget that every step of the way, from Bunker Hill to Gettysburg to Normandy, from Seneca Falls to the Edmund Pettus Bridge to Stonewall, every step of the way there has been resistance to the revolution. Progress has never been inevitable. It has never been a straight line. Almost always, it has come at great cost. If we, right now, are feeling defeated, exhausted, and betrayed, it is only because we thought we were on a glide path of progress. There is no glide path, and there never was. Our founders fought a war against a monarchy and designed a government that would divide and balance the power, most especially to keep the ultimate power out of the hands of the executive. But now the Supreme Court has raised the president above ordinary citizens and above the law. They have granted him immunity for criminal acts. With this Supreme Court and with this election, our government and our way of life hang in the balance. The counter-revolutionaries are in complete control, and they are telling anyone with the ears to hear that they intend to roll back the American Revolution. In hindsight, this crisis was predictable. It is easier to accept living in a democracy when your group is in the majority. If your guy loses the election, at least the winner looks like you. It has only been in my lifetime that people other than white males have been able to hold positions of power. But there is a bigger change just over the horizon. Simple math tells us that whites will soon be in the minority. This is a titanic shift that no democracy has ever faced. Our challenge now, as the first, most powerful, and most diverse democracy, is to prove that the dominant majority ethnic group that has ruled for centuries can yield its power, just the way Washington and Adams did. But there is more. I hear men complain their masculinity has been challenged, that society expects them to walk on eggshells and mind their manners, to give up their assumption of dominance. And I would say welcome to the world of women and pretty much every minority out there, but that's another letter. So it is that most men, white and non-white, have joined the counter-revolution so they can reassert their dominance over women and reassume their natural place in society. Still, there is more. As our society has moved closer to the ideals of the Declaration, groups that were once treated as pariahs have moved into a cultural mainstream in their rightful pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Like peeling an onion, as one group enters into the mainstream, another group is revealed that needs to be allowed to join the rest of us. Catholics, Jews, atheists, Muslims, women, Black people, Chinese immigrants, Irish immigrants, people with disabilities, gays, lesbians. Look, Think back to your high school days, or your parents, or their parents. Each of those groups, in their turn, were the people that were mocked, bullied, and excluded, treated as pariahs. The latest pariah groups are Hispanic immigrants and all those who do not conform to other people's ideas of sexuality and gender. Most especially, the bullies are picking on trans people. Enter the Christians. Many Christians have been a part of the American Revolution from the beginning and still are, thank goodness. But many Christians fell away from the revolution through the years. Angry white men bellowed from their pulpit that black people ought to be enslaved. Their sons bellowed that Catholics were not Christians and that Jews were Christ killers. Their sons bellowed that women should know their place. Their sons bellowed that will burn in hell. Their sons now believe that God does not make mistakes, pointing their angry fingers at trans people. And those sons all had wives watching from the congregation, nodding primly at the godliness of it all. Their Christianity uses Jesus as a political tool to reserve power to themselves. They want the power of government to take away other people's inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These too are counter-revolutionaries. So, this is it, our place in American history. These are the stakes. We see who is against us. Let us find strength in knowing that our generation is shoulder to shoulder with Americans of the 1770s, the 1860s, the 1940s, the 1960s, and many others. It's not going to be easy, and it is not going to be quick, but this is our moment. Let's saddle up. Very respectfully, Chuck Bennett. You know, it is fashionable among some Republicans to lift their eyebrow learnedly and say, we are not a democracy, we are a republic. As an old social studies teacher, that makes my eye twitch. If you want to get fancy, we are a constitutional democratic republic. For someone to say, we are not a democracy, we are a republic, is an important clue as to their motives. I have another letter for alarmed Americans. It's called Two Paths. It is early days, but I see two possibilities for how the new Trump administration will develop. The first path is disastrous, and the second path is worse. I hope you'll tune in. And if you want to like or subscribe, that'd be great. But even better, tell a friend. We need all the help we can get.